Hey friends, I have with me Cooper as part of our series that we mentioned earlier on in our service on Encountering Jesus. This is all about meeting real people in the scriptures who encounter the real Jesus, but also meeting real people from our congregation who've got their own real life encounter with Jesus. And Cooper's going to kick us off today. Cooper is a member of our 5 p.m. service and been a part of our church for a little while. But mate, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about what a normal week looks like for you.
Yeah, normal week for me, I work. So I work with in the waste industry. So typical Monday to Friday, most of my day will look like working at home at the moment, but we'll go into the office shortly. The weekend rolls around, I would then probably be working with my hands, whether it's redoing the laundry or
mowing the lawns here at church, I guess,
or making a caravan, or generally, pre-COVID as well would involve going to the beach at some point and going for a surf with my wife, and then probably finishing up on a Saturday or a Sunday evening watching the Springboks play rugby. Yeah,
the Springboks. So being South African is a big part of your story, which we'll hear a little bit.
Absolutely.
In a moment.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Sam, your wife too. So you and Sam been married for about 12 months.
Yeah.
And been living in Canterbury for about that time. Tell us what you love about the area.
Yeah, Canterbury is amazing. There's a lot to love about Canterbury. I think there's probably 3 things that come to mind. First thing is just the community, the people. Sam and I have both moved from opposite ends of the city, and so we've both had various experiences with people, and there's lovely people back in our communities where we've come from, but the people in Canterbury are just a bit different, and we love it. Whether it's the people at our local coffee shop, First Street Bakery, or whether it's just bumping into people at Woolies or Priceline, or the people, I think, are just really real and down to earth. The second thing would be probably the Cooks River. So just love going for a run or a walk. I don't know how many of my days during the week don't have some sort of engagement with Cooks River, whether it's walk past it on my morning coffee or go for a run in the afternoon or sunset walk or something. And then the last thing would be that it's just like it's almost like the centre of all the good food in Sydney. Whether it's Campsie, Lakemba, the IGA at Summerhill, the cheese room there. So just the food, just access to that. So lots of things to love about Canterbury.
Yeah, I hear. And I know, mate, from talking earlier, as you're going to share your own encounter with Jesus, has become for you just the central part of your life, really. But that wasn't always the case. I know from talking with you, you were, like many of us, but not all of us, raised in a Christian home. But there was a decisive moment for you, really, wasn't there, as a teenager, where you had a kind of encounter with him. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, probably just a bit of background to before that kind of that evening, I think. For me, the kind of, I suppose, the period of where I think, looking back on it, I now see that's when God was just working in my life, was probably entering high school. For me, it was a moment where I could establish my identity. I moved to primary school, or moved over from South Africa, and kind of entered primary school halfway through. So all the kids had their friendships. They had almost, in a sense, their identities kind of established, and I was just quite lost. So high school was a kind of a new, fresh slate for me, and I could kind of start all over again. And so it was popular. I was good at sport. The ladies loved me. I kind of had everything going for me. I felt like life was, in terms of life and kind of the things that life offered, it was great. I was a bit naughty and got in trouble a fair bit, but it just didn't feel like enough. So kind of come end of year 7 and beginning of year 8, kind of started experimenting a little bit with alcohol and with cigarette smoking, skipping school, just because I just felt like I wasn't I just felt a bit fragile. I was just kind of chasing something and trying to fill something. And then my mum actually took me to this event one night, and it was at Turramurra High School, and it was to go listen to another guy's story, actually, how he encountered Jesus. So it's kind of funny how it's full circle here. And the first thing that shook me was he was this big African man, and I think obviously just my growing up in South Africa have a real affinity for Africans, and just there's very much a love for Africa, and so that kind of captured me initially. His story is amazing, and I would encourage you to go listen to. He's written a book called Out of the Black Shadows. But basically, he was
what's his name?
His name's Stephen Lungu. He has written a book, or you can just YouTube him and listen to his story. It's great. A kind of really long story short, he was orphaned as a child and grew up on the streets and ended up running one of Africa's at the time most feared gangs called the Black Shadows. And the Black Shadows basically they were a terrorist group basically, and they were very much against Western oppression and Western idealism, and along with that came religion, Western religion, or kind of Christianity at that. And so part of his story was to really push against that, and even kill Christians actually. And one night he went to go petrol bomb a church gathering in a tent, and his encounter with Jesus was fascinating. He wanted to. He had 5 minutes before they petrol bombed the place, and he wanted to go inside and just see the faces of people that he was about to kill. And that's when kind of Jesus grabbed him. And I suppose kind of in reflection on Stephen's story, I think what happened there was, what happened for Stephen was very similar to what happened with me. I suppose for Stephen, it was Jesus offered forgiveness of sin. I think Stephen knew that he wasn't living the right way, although I don't think he knew what the right way was. And Jesus, through his death, offered forgiveness of that. And for me, that's, I think, knowing I wasn't living in a way that pleased God. There was a massive sense of relief that Jesus can forgive me from that. And that was all kind of driven from his love for me. That his love kind of overcame the punishment that I deserved, and kind of took it on himself. But I think secondly, and I think probably more powerfully, and for me, particularly at that time, gave me a sense of purpose. I really very much seemed to be trying all these things in life and trying to just consume and buy stupid stuff, or skip school, or trying alcohol and cigarettes. I was just trying to find myself, and Jesus at that moment gave me purpose and identity in that night.
Okay, and you mentioned a couple of things there, like that forgiveness was very powerful, like a powerful moment, transformative moment for you, and that love of Jesus and purpose that he brought to you. How have those things, that love, forgiveness and purpose, how have they continued to be a part of your life?
Yeah, heaps. And it's kind of my baseline, I think. I think my personality, I'm quite out there and quite easygoing, but I'm just non-stop. I struggle to sit still, self-diagnosed ADHD, but I'm constantly doing things, and so there's this kind of agitatedness, I think, inside of me, and that can sometimes mean I chase the wrong things, or chase things that are damaging for me or for my relationships. But knowing, I think the beautiful thing is always knowing that kind of once I've chased those things and just have come up empty, as I very often do, knowing that I can turn back to Jesus and he offers forgiveness. His love kind of drives him to offer forgiveness and gives me purpose in what I do day to day again. It's just a constant in my life. Yeah.
It's been really good, mate. I know this is just a snippet of your story and there's so much more we could go into. Because we're getting close to regathering in person, I'd love to just invite people. Next time you see Cooper around at church, if you're at 5 p.m. with Cooper, or Cooper might come to 9:30, bail him up and hear more. But mate, I'd love to hear just finally from you, because it could be the case that there's people here today hearing your story who've been cautiously watching Jesus, or maybe dipping their toes in about what it would look like for them to encounter him. What might you say to someone who has that kind of trepidation or a bit cautious about the difference Jesus might make for them?
Yeah. Knowing Jesus and knowing your Creator, I think we've spoken a lot about purpose, gives you purpose, and that is it's eye-opening in all of life. So that's in the absolute highs of life, and when life is just awesome, there is reason and kind of meaning behind that, and it's even more beautiful. So some of the most beautiful moments for me is sitting, on a beach, watching some amazing waves and watching the sunset go down, and that's amazing. But what's even better is knowing the Creator that's made that.
Yeah, the one behind it.
Yeah. So that I would say is the highs, but then in that absolute lows. So I think of just really, I've had some really low times, particularly in the last year. Whether it's when you lose loved ones or, just, work is just, you're in the trenches. In those really crappy moments of life, there is still purpose, and you're not in that trench alone. You're in that trench with that same Creator who created the beautiful sunset. He's kind of holding you and taking care of you in those moments as well. So it's the best thing ever. And happy to chat to anyone who's keen to have a chat.
It's a good word, mate, and a good invitation. I'd encourage you to take Cooper up on that. Mate, it's been so good having you share your story. There's going to be more moments like this in the coming weeks at church. You'll hear from 3 more congregation members in the coming weeks as they share their own encounter with Jesus. So look forward to that. For now, though, I'm going to hand back to our musos who are going to lead us in song.